Now, after this uncomfortable period for Elizabeth of pressure on what to do with the Netherlands, she actually seems to take a leaf out of the Wolsey playbook and looks to reshape essentially what the role is and the aim of England's foreign policy is in the Netherlands. It's only brief, but it's an interesting insight into what Elizabeth's motivations are in terms of certainly she's very, very focused on avoiding conflict with Spain. So she actually puts herself forward, England puts herself forward as something of a peacemaker, offers the idea of being a mediator between William of Orange and the Spanish. Now, the compromise Elizabeth puts forward is to bring back the liberties of the provinces, but they will continue to accept Habsburg rule. Now, that would be ideal for England because it means that you've got, you haven't got this unease and potential for, this tinderbox of potential conflict happening so close to England and in a position where that's happening in somewhere that England needs for economic reasons. And it means that England doesn't have to actually get involved militarily. So it's quite clever. It also sticks to Elizabeth's aim of really, she doesn't want rebellion. She's very much a conservative in that respect. And she feels that, revolutionary change is something which she wants to avoid at any cost. So it's an interesting idea, and it's something which, as I say, gives an insight into what Elizabeth's about. It does change, though, because in 1576, and this has got nothing to do with England in terms of England's policy, but it certainly presents something which is it changed the situation remarkably, which is the mutiny of the Spanish army, because it turns out that basically they weren't being paid. They sacked the city of Antwerp. Now, Antwerp, remember, is this central, extremely important trading centre, and it, in effect, completely radicalises almost basically the rest of the Netherlands to rise up and revolt with Spain. And it's clear that Spain can't deal with this. And as a result, there's a move to bring about, to calm things down with the restoration of the liberty of the Netherlands and of the Spanish to leave the country. And Elizabeth even gets involved by offering a loan of £100,000, so a significant amount of money, to those fighting against Spain if Spain don't agree. Now, Spain has no choice. They have to agree. So Spain do agree, something called the Perpetual Edict of 1577, and the Spanish army withdraw. Now, make no bones about it, this is not the Spanish moving away and deciding that they're not going to get involved. And by mid-1577, we've got Spanish armies back in the Netherlands. We've then got the disturbing aspect of, as mentioned when we looked at France, of the Duke of Anjou and his involvement. So, Elizabeth's in this really odd position when it comes to foreign policy, an unenviable foreign policy. She does not want a combination of Spanish and French relations. She fears this idea of sort of a Catholic union against her. She also doesn't want, though, to have either of those two turning against each other too much, because you end up with a hostile, unstable international environment. So ultimately, she wants cordial terms between them all, and as a result, she is very clear to not get involved in any of these sort of actions in the Netherlands if she can possibly afford it. So when you have her councillors really pushing for there to be English troops to be sent to get involved in what's happening in the Netherlands. Spanish achieve a significant victory at Gembloux in 1578. So rather than get English troops involved, the compromise is made of paying a mercenary, a guy called John Casimir, who turns out to be useless, worse than useless in some cases. His troops are German Protestants, and they basically spend their time looking to attack any Dutch Catholicism, Catholic churches, etc., which leads to the impression that this is England becoming more actively anti-Catholic and Protestant, which, if anything, is going to cause more instability and, shine a light on Elizabeth's own religious position, which is the last thing that she wants. So basically, by 1578, by the end of it, Elizabeth's foreign policy is an absolute mess. The judicial objective of trying to prevent one continental power from having too much control, in this case in the Netherlands, well, nothing's really solved the problem at all. If anything, she's managed to upset the Spanish significantly, and the Netherlands feel that England has not been supportive to them. So it's a lose-lose situation. And we actually see the Spanish in the ascendance. Although not directly involving England, it's relevant that in 1580 you have the Spanish invasion of Portugal. And there is a sense that Spain is absolutely in the ascendancy, and it could only be a matter of time before the Netherlands falls to total Spanish domination. And as you have the development of Spain, there is no reason not to think that Spain are not going to turn their attentions to England. And if they have control of the Netherlands, of course, they've got the perfect launch pad in order to carry out that attempt to invade and subjugate England. So this is, you know, as we get towards the end of the 1570s, this is a very, very worrying period for Elizabeth. And confidence in her, I think, amongst her councillors is not very high at this point. There is definitely a sense that England is lacking a clear policy to avoid itself from being a potential victim of Spanish conquest. Now, Elizabeth's natural caution means that she is holding out still about being more proactive and using English forces in the Netherlands, but she's rapidly running out of opportunities. There is, again, a sign of a bit of a confused policy. She offers support and seems to hope that this will get dealt with by the French, by Anjou. And even though this is one of the actions which destabilises the region further, she offers support to Anjou, and even there is the suggestion that England would be, the lesser of two evils would be the Netherlands dominated by France, rather than dominated by Spain. Neither of these is an acceptable outcome for England, and there is real resistance. Now, Spain, for their part, however, do seem to be more and more moving towards setting up a platform for attacking England. We have increased involvement in Ireland from the Spanish. The Pope is certainly pushing, and remember, he's excommunicated Elizabeth, is very much behind the idea of putting together a move against England, and the increased Spanish action really leaves Elizabeth with no choice but to act. And so she does act in terms of the Netherlands. She does act in terms of looking to get a treaty, the Treaty of Non-Such of 1585. Under this treaty, let's just check the details I've got written down here. She sends the Netherlands 5,000 troops, 1,000 cavalry. It puts England in control of the towns of Brill and Flushing for security. However, she does reject the offer of England actually taking literal ownership of these territories, because this is very keen. This isn't to be a takeover. And she still has this idea that sovereignty is given by God. Therefore, the citizens of those cities have no right to offer those to the English anyway. And as a side part of this, which might be moving into some more familiar territory, is that Francis Drake is dispatched to basically go and get some ships back that have been held by Philip and to cause mischief in the Spanish. But this shouldn't be overstaged. This certainly isn't the idea that Elizabeth is committed now to inevitable war against the Spanish. She's still very much open to the idea of a compromise, and certainly the force who are being put together to go to Netherlands and Drake off to cause mischief for the Spanish, both are fully aware they could be called back at any time, because certainly it's clear that Elizabeth is not, in this case, fully committed to what she's doing. And to me, to bring a sort of modern comparison here, there is a little bit of an air of Kennedy in the Bay of Pigs here, as in taking the action but not really being fully committed to it, and being quite open to the idea of withdrawal, which is certainly how Elizabeth operates, and those who are involved in this. Leicester feels that there is not enough money being given to him, that it's a half-hearted attempt, and ultimately even the Netherlands get the idea that really they're not going into it full force. And Leicester himself, when he accepts the title of Governor-General from the Netherlands, he is accused by the Queen of effectively challenging her authority. And Leicester himself is challenged. And, there are those who are suggesting that perhaps he is acting independently. Now, he has behaved rubbishly here. I'm not going to go into it right now, but by all means do go off and look at Leicester, because he is a fool, to put it mildly. That's the past interpretation. But Leicester's a fool. He is driven by ego. He's a terrible choice. And ultimately, he ends up making the situation worse. So undoubtedly we see Leicester causing problems worse. So ultimately, when we get to 1587, there's no doubt at all, as we get to the end of 1587 rather, that things are not good. And to summarise, Leicester's mucked up. England has spent a lot of money without much to show for it. Elizabeth actually turns to Sir William Stanley, not that one, from Henry VII, Sir William Stanley, who was a Catholic, to almost take over from Leicester. And the Netherlands don't like that, because of course he is Catholic, and the Queen doesn't really support him once he's there. And in terms of looking to find some sort of peaceful compromise with the Spanish, nothing really happens. Certainly there's no sense that any progress is being made on that measure. So ultimately, for all the efforts of Elizabeth, it's muddled, it hasn't worked, and England is not in any strength of position in the Netherlands, and they haven't done anything to dissuade the Spanish from looking upon England as ripe for conquest, which is where we get to the events of 1588 and the Spanish Armada.